Can you see that beautiful orange color? This soap contains no artificial coloring or dyes of any sort. It's just one simple ingredient that can be found in your kitchen that gives it this beautiful color. Hello and welcome back to Radiant by J Naturals. Today we are going to be making this 50% shea butter soap. This is perfect for children and people that have sensitive skin. It is also great for adding to your black soap. Instead of adding just raw shea butter into your black soap, it is better to make this soap and add it, because this would not reduce the lather of your black soap, but it would rather help it to give a very rich and beautiful lather while being very mild on the skin. The two products I showed you at the beginning of the video are actually the same soap. The one in the container, I use it to add to my black soap, while the one I have made into bars, I use it to bathe my children as is. Now let's go over to see how this soap is made. You can see that it gives a very rich and creamy lather, and it cleanses the skin without leaving it dry. So if you have been using soaps and they dry out your skin, this is a soap that you need to try out, because it will not do so. Now in this soap, I am using two different types of lye. Usually when making a bar soap, you would use sodium hydroxide, while you would use potassium hydroxide to make a liquid soap. However, this is a dual lye soap, so I am using both potassium and sodium hydroxide. The reason why I am using them is because when you make a dual lye soap, it gives a fluffy and creamy lather, because it comes in contact with water and it melts more readily than one made with just sodium hydroxide. Most shaving soaps that need to have a thick and fluffy lather are usually made with dual lye. Right now, this is the moment where I tell you to please take some time out to read the description box under this post, because I am going to be putting in a lot of details about making dual lye soaps and the reason why I use this method. And that information will be useful to you in making your own batch of this particular soap. So let's get right into the making of the soap. Please don't forget to read the information in the description box, as I am going to be putting the measurements of each ingredient in the description box. The first thing to do before you get into making your soap is to ensure that you are wearing protective clothing. Wear clothing that has long sleeves, and wear your gloves, as you can see me doing. I'm also wearing a nose mask, and I'm walking right in front of an open window, because there are fumes that come up when you make your lye solution, and you do not want to inhale that. When working with lye, you need to be very careful not to get any of the lye or the lye solution onto your skin, because it can cause serious skin damage and burns. Also, you need to ensure that there are no children running about as you are working, so that you don't get any of the lye on your children. You need to be very careful working with lye, and these safety measures cannot be overemphasized. You can see me measuring out the first ingredient, which is our potassium hydroxide. So I measure it out to the exact amount needed. As I said, the exact amount used would be in the description box. I am done with my potassium hydroxide, and I'm measuring out my sodium hydroxide lye, which is the second lye. Remember, we are making a dual lye soap, so the dual lye, the two lyes are sodium hydroxide and potassium hydroxide. Now we have measured out our lye and we have set it aside. We are going to be measuring out our oils. The first oil we are using is shea butter. Now when you use shea butter in your soap, it makes the soap to be harder, and it also makes the soap to be soothing on the skin. It brings conditioning properties into your soap. So shea butter is a good addition to any kind of soap that you want to use for sensitive skin, and that you want to have a creamy and lush lather. The next oil we are going to be adding is castor oil. I don't think I've ever made any soap without adding castor oil. Castor oil brings this bubbly, large lather, and it gives your soap this kind of expensive feel, like it's just so beautiful. And the kind of lather that castor oil produces is actually long lasting, so it is an oil that you want to add to your soap. And then the next oil we are going to be adding is refined palm kernel oil, or cold pressed palm kernel oil rather. So this is palm kernel oil, and it is like the major cleansing oil in this soap. So because we are adding shea butter into the soap, shea butter heavy soaps tend not to lather very well, but by the time you add palm kernel oil to it, it balances that out. So you get a bar of soap that is both mild and bubbly and does cleanse very well. So this soap is well balanced and well thought out. Your soap is as good as the oils you use to make it. So you need to decide on the kind of oils you use to make your soap so that you can get the best of both worlds, meaning that your soap will cleanse well but it will not dry out the skin. Now to the special ingredient that gives us that beautiful yellow color or orange, as the case may be. I know you must have guessed that what I'm talking about is red palm oil. So if you want this beautiful yellow color in your soap, just add red palm oil, and the amount of red palm oil you add depends on how yellow or how well you want your soap to be colored. And no, it is not going to stain your wall. You saw at the beginning of this video how I did a lather test, and you can see that there were no stains from the palm oil. So we are done with our oils. We have measured out all our oils. Next we go to our water phase. Now in our water phase, we have our distilled water. Please do not use tap water to make your soap. It would make the soap to go bad easily. And then what I am adding to this water is some sugar. I'm adding, this is half a tablespoon, so I'm adding 2 of that. That's 1 tablespoon of sugar. Now sugar is something that creates very beautiful bubbles in your soap. It makes your soap to be more bubbly. So that is why I'm adding sugar, and I prefer to add sugar most of the time instead of adding something like honey, because honey would give your soap a deeper coloring, right? So I also added half a tablespoon of sodium lactate. Sodium lactate helps to make the soap to become harder easily. So if you are making a soap that is like a paste or a bar soap, you should add some sodium lactate into your soap. So the sugar has dissolved completely. I left the sugar in the water to dissolve completely before I added my lye to it. Now please, if you are adding your lye, like I said, I am working right next to an open window, but you can actually go outside so that you don't get to inhale the fumes coming from this. You can't actually see it, but there's like a choking smell when you add your lye to water. So you can do that outside. So you add it and then you stir it, allow the lye to dissolve properly. Now I do a temperature check. I would put all these details in the description box, so please ensure that you are reading the description box so that you get every step right. So I took the temperature of the lye solution, and I also took the temperature of the oils. So usually I soap when my oils and lye solution are around 50 to, let's say, 40 to 50 degrees centigrade, unless if I'm making a soap that requires a higher soaping temperature. So I have taken the measurements, the temperature, and I just leave them until the temperature is just right, and you can see that the lye solution becomes transparent instead of cloudy. That's how you know that it is actually ready. So I add my lye into my oil mixture. So I stir it, give it a very good mix to ensure that it doesn't separate and to ensure that it comes to a trace. It actually comes to a trace almost immediately because I used shea butter. But you don't be deceived. Don't think, oh, you have done it all. You need to give it a very good stir. And I also gave it a blend with my hand blender. However, that step is optional. If you don't have a hand blender, you can just continue stirring from time to time until it becomes very thick, as you can see later in the video. And it's very good for you to stir rigorously while it is still warm, so that it does not become too hard and then it starts separating. So right now the batter is becoming more thick. I have not yet blended it. So at this point in time, I have gone to blend it, and this is what I have. The batter is even way thicker than before. So at this stage, what you need to do is to cover up this soap batter and put it in a warm place. If possible, you could even use a towel or a pair of a set of towels to cover it up and leave it till the next day. However, after about an hour or two, go and check it. If it is separated, if there is some separation going on, blend it back together or use your spatula to stir it back together, just to ensure that it does not separate. So when you leave it to the next day, this is what we have. And I have separated the one I am using for my black soap into this white container. This one in the jar, I added 1 liter of water to it, and that is what I used to make the bar soap. So what I did was that I added this liter of water to it, and then I used a double boiler to melt it down, and I added some ethanol. I added about 100 grams of ethanol to it, and I added about 50 grams of glycerin to it, and then that is what gave me these bars of soap. As you can see, these bars look more bright or deeper in color. That is because of the addition of ethanol and glycerin, while this one maintains its light color. So in the next video I'm going to make, I'm actually going to show you how I use this double boiler to make these kinds of bar soaps. I was not able to record that step in this video, but it is quite simple to do. To do a double boiler, you just need to put water in a pot or a pan, and then you pour your soap butter into another pot or pan, and you place it so it's like you're not heating it directly on the fire to avoid it scorching. That's why you use a double boiler. And then once it's melted up, you just pour it into any mold of your choice. And now, like I did earlier, this is my ladder test. And some people say, oh, I don't want to use palm oil in my soap because it may stain my walls. No, it does not. You can see how the ladder is. It looks very beautiful and very clean, and it's not going to stain your wall. And if I didn't tell you that I use palm oil, you wouldn't even know from seeing the ladder. So let me know if this was helpful, and if you would be trying this. Tell me in the comment section till I upload the next video. Thanks for watching this one.